again Susan at Harp House, Sweden. Many people ask me about strings, about the harp strings. What kind of strings do I use? How long do they last? Etc., etc. One of the trickiest things to teach people is the numbering of strings, that each string on the harp has a name. And it's the same for pedal harp and for lever harps. Maybe that's the thing we should do first. I don't have my pedal harp right here, but I have a lever harp. I have this chart from this handy dandy harp book, which is comes out in Swedish and Danish language, not in English yet. But at the back of this book, which I produced, you'll see a chart here for the names, the numbering of the strings. Well, if you don't read Danish, this won't be easy for you. Anyway, from this F up to the E, the first line there, and the G clef. From F to E is an octave, and it's easiest for me if I teach you what the fourth octave is. Where is the fourth octave on the harp? An octave goes from F to E, so just remember F to E. Take your hand and put your pointer finger, your 2, on middle C, and then put your ring finger, your 4, on F. Put your thumb on E. This is just one of the simple things I teach my students. An easy way to remember it. So from this F to this E, from this F to this E, this is called the fourth octave. Middle C is in the fourth octave. This is fourth octave F, fourth octave G, fourth octave A, fourth octave B, etc. Fourth octave C, fourth octave D, fourth octave E. What happens when we get to the next string, the next F? Move your hand up from F to E. This is called the third octave. So the octaves get shorter as you go up. Third octave F, third octave G, third octave A, etc. Third octave E. Move your hand up. This is called second octave. Second octave F, second octave E. On this 34-string harp, we have F, G, and A first octave. We just have 3 first octave strings. On the pedal harp, you have a full first octave, and you have 2 more strings that are called 0 octave. So ascending, the numbers get smaller. I always go back to fourth octave because middle C is there, and that's just a good reference point. So here's the fourth octave again. What happens if we go down from the fourth octave? Put your hand from F to E. This is called fifth octave E, fifth octave D, etc. Generally, not all the time, but generally on lever harps, the fifth octave wire strings begin here in the fifth octave. Fifth octave C is wire, and all the way down are continued wire. Put your hand here. This is called sixth octave E, sixth octave D, sixth octave C. Remember, always go back to middle C with your pointer finger, F to E. This is the fourth octave. Okay? Now we can talk about strings generally. There are a few categories of strings. There are gut strings, is maybe the most common and most tried and true. Professional harpists will string their harps with gut strings. They give the most beautiful resonant sound. The thing that's not so good about the gut strings are that they do tend to break, but sometimes they could last, more than a year or longer. But because they're natural fibers, the fibers will, with age, just pull apart and break. We have nylon strings also for the harps. Music schools often will string their harps in nylon because it's just so durable. Nylon is, like a synthetic plastic, and it sounds sort of plastic. But for beginners, it's perfectly fine to use nylon on your harp. On pedal harps, we would traditionally have gut in the middle because that gives the best sound. But then on the very top, from either the first octave and up, some people even do it from the second octave and up, they use nylon because nylon is durable. And then at the bottom of both pedal harps and lever harps, we have silk spun wire. It's a metal core spun with silk and then spun with metal again. There are different grades, 2 different grades. You can go for the really, really expensive strings or the standard wires. There's a new kind of string that's called synthetic gut, which is, as the name gives, silk gut, excuse me, the name is silk gut, and it is synthetic, but they wanted it to sound like a gut string, somewhere halfway between nylon and gut. Silk gut I use at where I teach, the music school where I teach has silk gut on their lever harps, and it is a slightly better sound. When you're putting a silk gut string on, do remember to pull it up hard because they're so elastic. You just turn it and turn the tuning key, turn and turn and turn, and you'll just have a lot of string on your tuning pin because they just really stretch. That's the only thing you need to know that's exceptional or different about the silk gut strings. Silk gut is patented by Bow Brand Strings at the Bow Brand factory outside of London. Let's see, I was going to show you, we saw in changing the harp string about gut strings. All strings are bought in coils. Gut strings are made of fibers, so if you're putting on a new gut string, you want to soften it a bit, work with it, make it more pliable. That's the only thing you need to remember that's exceptional about gut when you put them on. And then gut strings will be the kind of string that will tend to go dead or false also. If the fibers just aren't aligned well, then the clinging bell-like sound will go away. Another thing that people ask me is about the difference between lever harp strings and pedal harp strings. Here are lever harp strings. There are special lever harp wires, bass wires, and there are special, we have nylon and gut for lever. Some people asked, well, I have a pedal harp and I have a lever harp. Do I have to have extra sets for both the lever harp and the pedal harp? In other words, can I use a pedal harp string on the lever harp and vice versa? You can use a pedal harp string on a lever harp. The gauge is slightly larger, and because the tension is different between a pedal harp and a lever harp, you should actually have an extra set for lever harp for lever, pedal harp for pedal. But if in a pinch you can substitute. Originally, when they started to make lever harps in Chicago at the Lion Healy factory, their early Troubadour model used only pedal harp strings on that model, the Troubadour lever harp. But then over time they saw that the lever harp needs a slightly smaller gauge and a different tension. The tension is lighter on most lever harps. So the answer to that question is, in a pinch you can substitute a pedal harp string here, but the lever harp string won't even be long enough to put on a pedal harp unless it's one of the tiny strings. So I recommend having a full set of pedal harp strings if you have a pedal harp and lever harp strings, extras if you have a lever harp. The last thing I want to say in this tutorial is some people on limited budgets can't, or it's difficult to have a complete full set of extras at home all the time. You can have what's called a skeletal set. You can have every other string as an extra because it's possible to substitute one string position up or down. In other words, if this A string breaks and I don't have another A, but I do have a B, then I could put the B in this position. Likewise, if I don't have the A, but I do have the G, I could put the G one position up to A. I don't like going more than 2, and the harp makers don't recommend it, but one position you can do. And that's the reason why on a limited income you could have what's called a skeletal set. You could have a 4th octave F, a fourth octave A, a fourth octave C, and a fourth octave E. So that will mean you'll have about 4 strings per octave in your extra set instead of 7. But just be careful to think about the colors. It's a bit tricky. I've done it before though, when I didn't have a D, but I had a C. I put on a C string here and then you'll have 2 reds in a row, and it's a little bit tricky. I've played for years and years and years and years, and I still think it's tricky if I have 2 colors right in a row. So try and stick to the colors. It's just makes your playing easier. So leave your comments if you'd like below, and I hope this was a good learning experience for you. Have a nice day, and we'll see you, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks.